I'm Barbara Darby. I'm the Assistant Director of the Mountain Area Workforce Development Board and also the Business Service Lead for our 4-county area, Transylvania, Henderson, Madison, and Buncombe counties. And we have a workforce staff with us today. Melissa Wright is our Operations Director and Compliance Officer. And then we have Mark Zernecki and Brandon Priester, who are business service representatives. And then Zia Rifkin is not with us. She does the accounting aspect of the workforce programs. So thank you everyone for attending. And I am going to share my screen at this time. So our slideshow. How do I make this a slideshow? Oh, from beginning. Okay, there we go. So there'll be plenty of time for questions. So the Mountain Area Workforce Board is a department of the Land of Sky Regional Council. I learned yesterday that Land of Sky originated under a different name in the 1960s. So we've been around a long time. We have many different programs, of which the Workforce Development Department is one of our departments. At this time, there are about 22 workforce boards in North Carolina. Some of those are consolidating, so the number of boards may go down. Again, we serve the 4 counties listed. 50% of our board's membership is comprised of private industry, and the remainder of members represent economic development, education, community-based organizations, organized labor, and local government. Our budget for this program year, which runs July 1 to June 30th of the following year, is about $2 million. We serve youth. We have both in-school and out-of-school youth programs. We have youth contractors. We serve low-income adults and dislocated workers, and our focus is on training individuals in the workforce. We also oversee the 4 NCWorks centers in each county. There's one at the Madison County AB Tech campus in Madison. The Asheville NCWorks is on Grove Street downtown. And then Henderson Counties is located at the Blue Ridge Community College campus, as well as in Transylvania County. So all of those career centers offer business and employer services. Again, our mission is to be a fully integrated system of employment, education, and training for the purpose of strengthening our competitiveness of this region. Our executive director is Nathan Ramsey, and he is also the director of Land of Sky. And Graham Fields is our new board chair. Graham is with Advent Health in Hendersonville. Very briefly, I'm going to go through some of the programs we operate. The Business Accelerator Grant is a different grant than the Small Business Work-Based Learning Grant. There are similarities between them. We're going to focus on the Small Business Work-Based Learning today. We recently awarded 6 companies a total of $43,000 for the Business Accelerator Grant for incumbent worker training. That grant requires at least five incumbent workers, whereas this one, work-based, only requires 3 incumbent workers to use the program, and there's some other minor differences. I oversee the on-the-job training program, which provides the employer who brings on a new hire up to, and right now we're doing a 75% wage reimbursement for up to 1,040 hours of training. That's 6 months at full time. Although full-time in our training contract starts at 30 an hour. We develop career pathways and we oversee sector initiatives. Currently, we have certified career pathways in healthcare, manufacturing, hospitality, and tourism. We will be submitting our career pathway to the NCWorks Commission this year for IT and technology, and we are developing our 5th career pathway in construction and skilled trades. If you've heard of the WNC Career Expo, which this year is on March 23rd at the Ag Center, if you'd like to participate in that job fair, watch the Asheville Chamber website in February. You will need to register, and the usual cost for a booth there is $250. We financially support the two expos, and our staff and our NCWorks staff help with those job fairs. We also support other smaller job fairs that occur in the 4 counties. At our Asheville NCWorks Center, we have a program called Asheville 50 Plus. This is an initiative to assist your experienced worker in getting back to work. We also support early childhood education to train more childcare workers so that more people can go to work because they don't have childcare. And we're also involved with Apprenticeship NC. In fact, this morning I talked with the Boggs chair owners about an apprenticeship possibility in chair making. You may be familiar with Mr. Boggs. Now to the NC Work-Based Learning Grant. This grant is a cost reimbursement grant. That means you pay for the training first, and when it's completed, we reimburse you from Land of Sky Regional Council. It is a rolling application. We have many things going on at this time. If we can open the application prior to April 1st, we will. And we'll be in touch with those who have completed an initial questionnaire, which is basically intent to apply. The companies that we serve with this grant must have between 3 and 25 W-2 employees. You may have other contract employees or temporary employees, but they don't count as part of the 3 to 25. You must provide workers' compensation policy to participate in this grant. Incumbent workers are workers who are currently employed by you, and there is no amount of time that they have to have been with you, but I would encourage you to consider training those incumbent workers who have been with you a while and who you want to invest time and money in, because you anticipate that you're going to retain them, although we can't predict who resigns or who leaves. But give thought to who you provide the training for. We will go over the allowable cost. I sent everyone on my registration list the guidelines, but I'm going to encourage you, if I did not call your name, that you email me at barbara.d@landofsky.org, and I will send you the guidelines, because we're not going through all the guidelines today. And my email address and phone number is at the end of this presentation. You can get up to $25,000. You can do that in one sum if you have a very, very large training cost, or you can do it incrementally over a period of time. So we have until December 31st of 2024 to obligate this $904,000 that we received for work-based training. Most of that is going to be spent on incumbent worker training grants. Some of it may be spent on the job training, which I will cover briefly at the end of the presentation. The process. So if you are not registered as a business on ncworks.gov, to apply, you need to register, and you're going to need your UI number and your tax ID number. If you need assistance, you can call one of the 4 NCWorks centers and they will assist you. If you want someone out to come out and sit down with you and go through this registration process, we can schedule that. Sometimes we do that if it's needed. After you have registered as an employer, or if you are already registered, make sure your information is updated. You can submit what's called a pre-application questionnaire to me at this email address. I will send you the pre-application to complete. When I get that back, you and I will have a conversation about what you have in mind for training, how much it might cost. And if you're not real sure, then we can do something like an informal training needs assessment to uncover maybe some gaps in knowledge, skills, and abilities of your employees, and we can help you find the training that you want. You would submit a fairly brief application. That application will be reviewed by an internal workforce team. If we find errors in the application and budget, we will make you aware of those for correction. And then once we approve your grant application, we have a contract that's between Mountain Area Workforce Board and your company. And it simply states we're going to reimburse you X dollars between this date and another date for training. There are assurances that you must read and sign. So you have to provide a safe workplace. You can't discriminate, etc. So I will send you these federal assurances in advance if you would like to read through them, make sure you're okay with them. And as part of the process, we have to put your company in our NCWorks, in the NCWorks database. We also have to have an attestation form signed by you that says you have I-9s on your current W-2 employees. We do not ask for the I-9s. If there's an on-site visit by us, which would be scheduled, we may ask to see them. And we also need your company's W-9 because we're going to be reimbursing you as a training vendor. All trainees have to be registered in NCWorks. They complete a data sheet of information, basically name, address, and if you want to look at that data sheet, I can send you that also. Also, we probably are going to post these documents on our Mountain Area Works website and on the Land of Sky website, so you can access them there. If you're going to train any male, they have to have registered in selective service between the ages of 18 and 26. If we find out that they have not done so, there is a form that they complete that basically says, I did not register unwillingly, or I did not willingly not register. But that's getting in the weeds a little bit. You proceed with your training. You're going to send me a monthly report on where you're at in the training. When the training is completed, you submit a document for reimbursement. And if you have more than one, what we call training component, that is fine. We can reimburse you after each component. So you may have 3 things you want to do training in. You'll complete a form for each of those training components. What is it going to cover? How's it going to help your company or the employee? Who is the training vendor, etc. So we can reimburse you periodically as you complete different training components if there's more than one component. And then we follow up with the trainees twice after completion of training. There's a certain period of time that lapses after we exit them out of our system. And then we follow up 2nd quarter and 4th quarter because the state wants to know, are they employed? And are they employed in a job as a result of this training? It's important that they be employed. If they're not employed, then we may follow up with them to see if we can assist them. allowable cost. People are always curious about what's allowable. This morning, I got a request. Can you cover relocation of an individual from another state or another country? And the answer is no. The money is not for relocation cost. I had never been asked that question, but individuals are companies are having to go outside our Fort Cannon area, outside our state, to other states to find workers. And it's that way across the nation. So it really didn't surprise me that much. So you can use this $25,000 to pay registration and tuition fees for courses. They can be continuing ed courses or curriculum courses at the local community colleges, but they cannot be part of an ongoing educational degree program. The training courses can be online, they can be in person, they can be hybrid. So we're flexible in that regard. The training that results in a participant obtaining an industry recognized certification or credential to include training preparation for a certification exam. So if you have someone who is kind of like maybe they're your HR, your hiring person, and you would like them to get certified in HR, we can pay for the HR course, either online or in person at one of the local colleges, and we can also pay for the certification exam. If you have other certifications, maybe it's in logistics, maybe it's in quality. If you would like someone to get certified, this money can cover those costs. Like I said, web-based training is online. In previous years, it was not allowable. Now it is, because it's becoming the standard. You can use this money to do skills assessments that result in training through the grant. One of our add-ons for this grant, you can get up to $5,000, and I think it's on this slide, for consulting services that are in conjunction with training. So if you have a situation where you're really you want to improve your processes, but you want to hire someone from NC State to come look at your operation to see how the processes can be improved, along with training that can help help your company, then consulting up to $5,000 is allowable. And this is something that Melissa went to the state about to see if this could be covered, because I get requests for this service. So we were very pleased that this could be included. Textbooks, manuals, materials, supplies, and purchase of software needed for training. The purchase of software is another add-on that we were able to get approved at the state level. Melissa did the work on that, so we're very pleased that the money can cover software, but it cannot cover hardware and equipment that is going to be used over and over and over. I think travel. So if your participants need, if you need to hire a third-party trainer to come in to train your employees, and that training is not available within a reasonable distance from your business, we can pay for travel for trainers, which includes mileage, reimbursement, meals, and lodging. And all those rates are based upon the government website, gsa.gov. So if you're going to include this in your budget, you have to go to the website, find the closest city to where let me see. Yeah, so this would be based on Asheville, North Carolina, per diem reimbursement cost. I believe that we may be the only board in the state that provides money for your employees to travel for training. For example, I have a company that got the Business Accelerator grant. It's technical training. They have to go to Ohio for the training. So we are covering up to $2,000 max for employees to travel for specific training. It can't exceed 25% of the total requested amount. So if you, yeah, so 25%, and this covers food, lodging, transportation. Again, you have to go to the government guidelines. Doesn't cover incidentals, but we have found that many companies use the $2,000 for travel. Process improvement, quality related training that's not a state mandate is covered. And I mentioned consulting can be covered up to $5,000. So before we go in on the job training, I want to take any questions. We do have until noon for this conversation. Does anyone have any specific questions at this time?
Barbara, is this travel specific for the Business Acceleration Grant, or is it also applicable to the Work-Based Learning Grant? You mentioned
it's for both. Okay, it's for both.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Barbara,
Yes.
At one point it says that wages are not reimbursed, but then at the same time you said that up to 75% of wages were reimbursed.
Okay, that's wages are reimbursed through our on-the-job training program, not through the Work-Based Learning Grant. So there are two different programs, and I will discuss on-the-job training next.
Okay.
Okay.
Can this is Sophie. Can you say a little bit more about the consultant?
Yeah. So we would have a discussion about why you need a consultant and what that consultant would be consulting around, and what kind of training, if they need to identify training that is needed within your company, and then you need to request grant monies to conduct that training. So this is brand new, and we would like to use, if we can, our local consultants. So you have SCORE, which offers free consultation. You have SBTDC, the Small Business Technology and Training Center, which is based out of Western Carolina, and I believe in Asheville. Some of their consulting is free and some is fee-based. And then you have Mountain BizWorks. They provide consulting. Some of it, what they offer as services is free, some is fee-based. You have your small business centers, Jill and Ben at our local community colleges, that offer an array of services for small business. Some of their workshop and trainings are free. A lot of them are free, but some have cost. So this grant would cover those that have cost. So if you're very specialized and there's not a local consultant that can address your needs, then of course you can go outside the area and use a consultant of your choice.
If it's okay if I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
So we're in the process of bringing on some software to help with quality improvement, and we would want to train our staff on
Okay.
how to use that software. Would that be something that would be eligible under this?
Yes, that sounds like it would be allowable. Yeah.
That is correct. I think so
Any
too.
other direct questions? And as I said, if you are interested in further conversation about this grant, please send me an email today or tomorrow, whenever, and I will contact you. And if looks like it's something you want to proceed with, then I'll provide the documents that are needed and answer any questions.
Barbara, this is Libby. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
The majority of the allowable expenses are for third-party training, essentially, right? Where we're hiring another
Right.
company outside of ours to train. It wouldn't be like my senior sewers could train my, newer sewers.
Yeah.
It's
So
fine.
yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for that question, because Zia in accounting and we had that exact conversation this morning. And Libby, she has a apprentice in pattern making at her sewing company, which is very, very exciting. And our other accelerator grant is helping pay for that. But Libby, you can also use this grant in conjunction with the business accelerator grant. They're different pots of money and have similarities. But if your other staff at your company have training needs that are not like in pattern making, you can apply for this grant. So accounting said that if you have an internal trainer, such as journeyman craftsman, they would need to form a DBA business, and that person could be the trainer, and the training vendor would be the DBA business. I need to run that up the ladder with our accountant and make sure that's correct. And this came up this morning. Mr. Boggs with Boggs Chair, he is a 40-year craftsman in making these beautiful, beautiful furniture. And there's like no one of his caliber, probably in the nation, who can train the way he wants to train his incumbents. So how does the company, they want to hire 2 people possibly through the OJT program, and there is some training locally that the incumbent worker training program could pay for, but because of the nature of his business and the way he trains, he needs to be the trainer. So he's not an outside third party. So how can the grant utilize him as the trainer for the incumbents, but also the new hires? So that's a question I'm exploring, and my conversation this morning said, well, perhaps the company forms another company, and that specialized trainer we utilize the DBA business as the training provider. So Melissa and I we'll explore that, and we'll get back with you on that.
Thanks, Barbara.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this is some of this is new because I had to write a new policy for the ARPA grant, and so we're learning also some things we have to check with the state, but they're giving us a lot of leniency to be able to help all the small businesses. But we still have to be careful and not overstep our bounds. So we'll definitely find out. Anything we don't know, we'll definitely find out and share with you.
Exactly. Does anyone else have any?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Jennifer.
My firm is a professional services firm, and sometimes there are continuing education opportunities that are offered at conferences that are oftentimes out of state. Is that something that could be covered by this?
Okay, we do not cover conferences, the cost of conferences. So I would imagine that if the training is part of a conference agenda, that there's no separate cost for that, is there typically?
Sometimes there is, like if it's a separate short course, sometimes it's just the learning opportunities that you get by interacting with other presenters. So
Mhm.
that
Let us,
wouldn't be-
yeah, let us check on that. If in the guidelines that I sent those who were on the registration list, it has a whole list of non-allowable cost, and conference cost are part of non-allowables. But I do know that in some conferences, they offer workshops before the main conference that are at an additional cost. So let us, Melissa and I will research that with the state and get back with you.
Okay, I'll send you an email about it too.
All right, that's great. Thank you.
And would you copy me on that if y'all have any
Okay.
questions that you send us? I'll put my email in the chat so I know what all you need to know and the specifics.
And Barbara Nicole Will has raised her hand with a question.
Okay, Nicole, go ahead.
Good morning. You probably covered this, and there are lots of bullet points, but I'm just wondering, the W-2 employees, do they all need to be full-time? Was that mentioned?
There is not a requirement for full-time.
Okay, thank you.
Is that correct, Melissa?
No, there is. It does need to be full-time. It needs to be someone that you're gonna train to do more, and it does need to be full-time.
So
Because
full-time
part-time
is,
doesn't always lead to full-time, and it may just be, part-time is seen more as a temporary position.
part-time for us is, I mean, full-time is 30 or more hours per week. So there is some leeway there, 30.
Yes,
And
correct.
Melissa, we need to check our policy. I don't know if I saw that in there. So
Which part?
the full-time,
As far
it's the W-2 employees.
okay, we can check on that, but I don't know how. Yeah, let me just look. I thought I wrote it up full-time
Okay,
because we didn't want to have temporary or part-time, but
I know they can't be temporary or contract employees. But oftentimes, small businesses only have part-time employees, or maybe most of the employees are part-time. So even
And
for go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, let me reach out to the state about that, because I would think if it was a part-timer that you were doing this training to move them to full-time, that would be acceptable. So then that creates a issue there with, yeah, I would approve it then, but let me just ask them.
I'll just say to Barbara's point, we have several permanent part-time positions with our agency that are long-term employees in a permanent part-time spot that they don't want to move to full-time, and but we want to continue to develop them and their skills in that part-time position.
And that makes sense, definitely. So I'll reach out and let Barbara know so she can get back to you on that.
Okay, I know.
That would be wonderful. Thank you. Because our situation is similar to Sophie's. This training could help move them to full-time. And again, a lot of them are able at the permanent part-time.
And I'll bring up that point too, when I ask the state, because that, like I said, if you do want to develop a part-timer to move them to full-time, or like you said, small businesses have a lot of part-time, I would think that would be something that they would be on the bandwidth.
Thanks,
I'll
Melissa.
say that's the same situation we were in too. Our folks don't want full-time, but they have been with us for years and years working part-time.
Okay,
Yeah.
and this is good conversation, and thank you for the questions.
Mhm.
They're excellent. This helps, know what's out there, what your needs are, so we can help you develop this program better for you.
We're in the same boat as Safi and Nicole with permanent, long-time, part-time employees.
I'm
Okay.
gonna reach out right now while you are on here. I'll see if I can get an email back while we're talking about
Okay.
that, because that's a pretty simple question. So
I haven't received the email Barbara mentioned about the guidelines for on-the-job training
Yeah.
or the business accelerator grant. Is there a website that I can go to for referral for that?
We will post the documents for the work-based learning grant. Looks like we may have some modifications, so we will post those on the Land to Sky website and the Mountain Area Works website. Also, just please email me since I don't have your email address, and I can send the guidelines that way. I'll get them to you
Do
today.
you mind to put it in the chat?
Not at all.
Okay, thank you.
Barbara, is the in the guidelines, it said the April 1st for the filing, to file complete and everything. So this doesn't apply to anything prior to that with like some time period, like within 90 days of the start of this, you could apply or anything like that?
No, so we have several large events going on. We're getting ready for in March, and so my time is kind of tight. But any conversations that we have and the pre-application questionnaire that can be completed in advance. If it's training that needs to be done right away, maybe there's already a date set for the training that you need. We will try to accommodate that and accept your application early, but based on our staff availability to get this implemented, we're pretty busy, but I would like to have conversations with all the companies and know your intent. And you certainly can be working on your application. But as far as having them reviewed and with a response or
No, I was more referring to, I have one that's already booked for the month of March. And therefore, it has to be paid up front and I have to do that. And I didn't know if that one would be considered for reimbursement when you guys were back at staff ability.
Okay, so before we can reimburse you, we have to have a fully signed contract in place. And of course, okay. And how many people would be going to training? One or more?
Just one at the moment. I don't have the resources to send more than one at a time.
Okay, so that person also would have to be enrolled in our NCWorks system. I do a very short application that they sign and they fill out an information sheet. So yes, we would like to help you with that cost. And is it early in March or late in March?
It's actually the month of March.
The month of March, okay.
It's a 1 month training. It's a 1 month training out of state that I have to pay for and put them up,
Wow, okay.
as well. So, but it makes them into and they're already full-time, but it makes them into, somebody that is a revenue generator and definitely, elevates their skills dramatically. So
all right.
I can,
Sounds,
I don't have a problem with any of the stuff that's required to be done. I just didn't know if there would be consideration. I can understand if the training was 2 years ago, but that's kind of question.
No, we cannot reimburse for any training or any payouts or anything that you've paid for prior to a duly signed contract between Mountain Area and your company. And of course, the trainee needs to be enrolled in the system. And then training can take place after that.
Barbara, to that end,
Mhm,
I was referencing the software and the software training.
mhm.
If we initiate working with a software provider to get our system set up or whatever before we get approval, but don't pay for all of it, we pay for a part of it, we'd be able to pay for any remaining
You need
fees
to pay,
associated with that.
yeah, so if there's equipment involved, you can certainly pay for that.
Mhm.
But we need to pay for the total cost of the software, not an increment of it. And if you're under a timeline where you really need to do this soon, we'll try and work with you on that.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Very good. So let's move on. It is 11:30. So on the job training is a program that we've had for many years. It's a very successful program, and it is for hiring individuals where there is a training gap in knowledge, skills, or ability. And fortunately, because we have been very fortunate to get various grants, we do not have to qualify the individuals as low income. Some may be dislocated workers, but in our ongoing OJT programs, for OJT, the person would have to be at a certain percentage of the poverty level, or coming out of incarceration, and we can serve them as dislocated workers, or someone who's been unemployed for 13 or more consecutive weeks is a dislocated worker, or if they've been laid off due to downsizing or closure, they're dislocated workers. So if you need to bring someone on board as a new hire, as a W-2 employee, this program can reimburse your company 75% of their wages, of their gross wages, for up to 1,040 hours. That's full-time at 40 hours a week. Not all training takes 6 months. Some training takes more than 6 months, but we can only reimburse up to the max of 1,040 hours. The program is to get the trainee up to speed so they can hopefully function at full capacity. This requires a contract and monthly reporting on your part. Your company is enrolled, will have to be in NCWorks as an OJT training provider, and the trainees will have to be enrolled also into NCWorks. The business, about every 4 to 6 weeks, you send us documentation, a time card, a payroll report, an invoice, and we reimburse you. And pre-COVID, we made on-site visits to companies, and then during COVID, we did not. But we would especially like to get to know your business and understand your business and see what other services we can provide. So I do like to come out and visit at least one time during the training period.
Oh, Barbara, before you go any further, can I add something?
Sure.
I just wanted to make them aware that on-the-job training falls under the WIOA program. So this is policy, and we don't have any leeway here. Unlike the incumbent worker training for the ARPA grant, then we are able to go to the state and say, could we do this and change things a little bit? But we do not have that control under the on-the-job training.
What is WIA?
That's the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, and that's what our workforce board works under for the state and federal government. It's to put people into training, and our goal is to have everybody work and at living wages. So everybody has that opportunity if we give them training, or if nothing else, they go to the career centers that we oversee and do job search. But the WIOA program is a very intensive and detailed program where we have to have much documentation to enroll the participants. So it's much different animal than incumbent worker training, where there's not as much documentation, and the same policies do not affect the incumbent worker. So those, I think there's like 4 documents that the incumbent worker trainee has to provide, whereas the OJT, there's probably 8 to 10. It's very intrusive and intensive, and it's just a lot more than the incumbent worker training. But it does, like I said, the incumbent worker training doesn't fall under the Workforce and Innovation Opportunity Act.
Okay. The wages paid in on the job training have to be at your local labor market rate for that position. The intent of the program is for you to retain the trainee after the contract ends. I literally have had people get on with a company through OJT and stay with the company even 15, 20 years. They go from entry level to an engineer or entry level to a supervisor. It can be pretty amazing as far as helping a person progress through the company. The trainee can be terminated for cause or resign at any time. We reimburse you up through their last hour of work of training. A workers' comp policy is required. Benefits are not required, but encouraged, some form of benefits. Now this, if you utilize the OJT program and say you bring on someone and it's going to cost $10,000 to do their training, that $10,000 does not get subtracted from your 25K. The incumbent worker grant money is a different funding stream. OJT isn't included in the grant, but like Melissa said, there are some different requirements for the trainees. And if you're interested in learning more about the OJT program, I send you something called a pre-award analysis. There are 12 criteria the company has to meet to participate. And then once we have that, we work on your training plan, identifying the training objectives and the time period to complete the training. We have a contract that you sign. We ask for 2 evaluations, one midpoint, one at the end, and then a final report at the end. So that we also encourage you to share your success stories with us. If you would like Brandon or Mark to come out and do videography or photography that you can utilize in advertising, or that requires, if we do any of that for you, then we require, and we post it, we require a release from your company and any trainees that are in the pictures. But if you just utilize them internally on your website, then it's up to you to get the consent. But we're trying to document success stories of individuals who have grants, and we have some really nice videos of companies who participated recently in our Business Accelerator grant, and Mark went out and they did videos, or they sent us videos. So these grants are, they're just a great resource to help you hire people and train and develop people, and hopefully keep your employees and for a long time. So I know it's, are there any other questions? There's my email address, barbara.d@landofsky.org. My mobile number, which I use for work. You can reach me at any time.
Barbara?
Yes.
Is the 904,000 just for mountain area, or is it for the state?
It's for mountain area. So Melissa has the breakout on that. So I think, Melissa, is it like 600,000 of that for incumbent worker and the remainder possibly for OJT? We can, if we have more of these grants than we have money identified for, we can ask the state if we can move money from OJT into incumbent worker. So we got 904,000 for our workforce board. And, you know, there's some, it is all for work-based learning.
Yes, the entire amount was for reentry and substance use disorder.
Oh.
So the grant was 3 different areas, but we have 704,000 for small businesses. But again, it's broke up into a budget. So like Barbara said, we can move, whereas the OJT is a little more intensive, and we have some set aside for that, but the incumbent worker training is an amazing program and much easier on the small businesses and their trainees. So we could move that money if we see that we're spending it more rapidly than we would OJT. We can just move that into that. I just reach out to the state with what I want to do. They approve it, and it's a pretty simple process.
Mm-hmm.
Barbara, would it be safe to say a call to action for everybody here that gets excited about this opportunity would be to go in and make sure their company is set up in NCWorks, and those employees that are likely to be beneficiary to also be in NCWorks? Would that be a safe start?
Yes, and if so 828-251-6200. This is the NCWorks Center Asheville, and Rodney Embler is taking the calls from employers right now. He's the manager. So if you see that you're not in NCWorks, or if your account is inactive, or you're having trouble with updating it, I would call Rodney Embler.
And that's for Buncombe County. We have Madison County. We have a different NCWorks office. We have an NCWorks office in Henderson County, as well as Transylvania. So
Right.
it is county based.
Right.
Barb.
Yes.
About NCWorks, I sit on the board for the state on for contractors, and NCWorks has been brought up a couple of times, and maybe you can clarify something other that's been pretty fuzzy on that, which is a lot of people don't encourage their employees to register for NCWorks, because at the same time, we're also being told that if you need workers, go to NCWorks. So once an employee or somebody registers on NCWorks, they're afraid of poaching? Long story short.
So what they do, there's a box that says, I'm not looking for work. And so they check that box. And so the employer, they are not visible to other employers. They just, so when they register for our grant programs or OJT, they're not looking for work because they have work.
So but just like any other job board like Indeed or Monster or something like that, where they just post they're posting their information, registering with the state, but if they don't make it public to say that they're looking for work, then we
right.
Okay.
Right.
That was just a concern, and I didn't have the answer to address that with the board.
Yeah, and you can call Rodney at that number and he can explain. He can even pull up a screen and show you specifically. Yeah, good question, because we don't, employers quote steal from each other, always have. And with the unemployment rate at 3.1, we're the lowest in the state. In fact, pre-COVID, our Mountain Area Workforce Board was had the lowest unemployment rate in over 5 years, 60 months. It could have been 65 months. And then when COVID hit, we had the highest unemployment rate. And now we're actually have more people working than pre-COVID. It doesn't seem like it, but our labor pool, I think we only have like 7 to 10,000 people in our 4-county area who are not working, but are in the labor force between the ages of 18 and maybe 55 or 60. So the labor pool is very tight, and it's all the more important that that businesses train and retain their workers.
We have Libby with her hand raised, Barbara, and the chat.
Okay, why am I not seeing the
Hi.
hands? Yeah, go ahead.
I just have a question about the on-the-job training. Can you review, are you saying there might be some different qualifications or criteria for folks that are different from than they have been in the past? Could you just review the criteria for on-the-job training candidates?
Okay, so,
And can I just add, I don't think it's any different, correct, Barbara?
yeah, so I was, in previously outside of our current OJT program, the person had to be either low income based on an income matrix, which is based on federal, a percentage of the federal poverty rate. But because we have ample money at this time, an individual does not have to meet the low income matrix for their family size. They can be any income. And they can also be a dislocated worker or a long-term unemployed individual or someone coming out of incarceration or someone in recovery. So the populations we can serve has expanded because we don't have those income guidelines aren't a requirement right now.
And that's the only change, but we still need to have the participant in an OJT provide 6 months income. We still have to show that that is a federal policy. So
Yeah.
even though we've lifted that income limit, we still have to show the income.
And if they haven't had income for 6 months or 1 year, then Melissa, they have to attest to that. I mean, there are
Correct.
some situations where they haven't had income for the previous 6 months, and we have a form and they attest to that, but they have to provide, we have to upload in NCWorks their social security card. We redact all but the 4 final numbers. They have to have either a state issued ID or a driver's license. We redact the registration number. They have to have a birth certificate or something for citizenship, a passport, and we redact PPI or private information on those. We have, for the men, we have to have a selective service verification to show they registered for selective service. For anyone, born prior to January 1st, 1960, it's not applicable because they're older now. And yeah, so Libby,
let me add to that too. We also have to have, of course, as I mentioned, the income, like you said, if it's been a year, if they can attest, but we have to have verification documentation of education, like their last education, if it was high school diploma. We have to have family size, some documentation of family size, whether it be a lease, a birth certificate for everyone in the family, or a tax return. It has to be the most recent tax return. And it's usually like the first page of the 1040 EZ, where it lists the dependents, if there are any, or it just shows a single person or whatnot. But that's where I mentioned earlier, the OJT program falls under our WIA regulations. And so it's much more intense. And then there's documentation through the program that the business and the participant has to provide. And this is just eligibility documentation to get them into the on-the-job training. So that's why I was saying earlier, it's a much more detailed training than it is the incumbent worker training.
right.
Can I just confirm that the requirements have changed so that they're no longer needed to be a low income individual and they no longer need to be a dislocated worker, is that correct?
Correct. They can be an adult or a dislocated worker, and the income limit has been lifted temporarily
So
due
we
to
have,
our amount of funding that we have this year.
yes, so we have to enroll them either as an adult, which has typically been low income, but that doesn't apply now, or a dislocated worker. And there are there are several ways a person can be a dislocated worker. Like I said, laid off due to no fault of their own, having received UI, unemployment insurance, and used all the UI payments, which I think now are at what, 12 or 13 weeks. They
13.
can come out of the military so many days, 120 days out of the military, or they can come out of incarceration, or they can be a housewife or a homemaker who has to go back to work due to need, and he or she doesn't have the skills needed to work in the current environment. So there are many types of dislocated workers.
And I'm sorry to keep interrupting you, Barbara, but before it ends, I just wanted to mention that I do have approval from the state. I gave them all the information that y'all gave me, and I told them it seemed that our area had a lot of small businesses that had long-term part-time people that they wanted to train, and so they approved the part-time work.
Yay.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
You're
Safi
welcome.
in the chat is also asking, do we have our staff register on NCWorks for comprehensive or quick registration? Is the question. Comprehensive or quick registration on NCWorks?
There's something called comprehensive registration. There's something also called Eligibility Explorer on NCWorks that participants can complete who intend to go into training either through the OJT program or incumbent worker.
Can we also add in there, and I prefer that they enroll in Wagner-Pizer, because especially with an OJT, that is a requirement before we can enroll them in WIOA, which is where the OJT falls under. But we do like everyone, even if they're not in our programs, to enroll in Wagner-Pizer on NCWorks. And then they are able to upload their documentation from there, especially if they're going to be on the in the OJT program. And I'm sorry, Barbara.
That's correct. So when they go in to register it as a job seeker, they will be they will have the option to register in Wagner-Pizer. If I find someone has not registered in Wagner-Pizer, then I can do it. But I think it's a normal process of the job seeker registration that they're prompted to register. Is that correct, Melissa? I don't know if they choose Wagner-Pizer or if they're put into Wagner-Pizer just because they've registered. I haven't seen that from the job seeker end. I'm sorry.
When they register in Wagner-Pizer, then you would have to create participation.
Right.
So they would actually go into Wagner-Pizer and register, and then you would create their participation if we needed to do that for like an OJT. But I would love to see, that's why I was typing in the chat, I'd love to see all the participants, whether it be a small business in OJT or incumbent worker training also, register in Wagner-Pizer. Even if we don't go back and create participation, the NCWorks keeps up a track of our regions and how many people register in Wagner-Pizer that are using NCWorks or looking at NCWorks. So I would appreciate that because it's very helpful to our area.
Okay.
We could get more funding, basically. It helps our funding.
Yeah. So if anyone who's interested in having an additional conversation, please call me or text me at the cell number or send me an email. I'll make sure you have the guidelines, the pre-award questionnaire, if you want to look at the OJT guidelines, I'll send you the OJT guidelines. So I would welcome participation in one or both of those programs. Any other questions?
In closing here, I'd like to give a virtual round of applause. You know, this is a rare opportunity, and Melissa and Barbara and Zia and team have put a lot of effort into this, you know, starting from the grant writing to this. So if we're closing, I'd like to give Barbara and Melissa a virtual round of applause, because this is an exceptional opportunity, and we're so grateful that we have so many that are interested in this program. So
yes, and thank all of you for joining. I'm very proud of this grant because I had a hand in writing it and been able to write the policy. And Barbara's been amazing at the incumbent worker training program and on the job training program with the assistance of Mark and Brandon. And it's just been really a group effort, and it's going to really help a lot of small businesses. So I really look forward to all of you joining us in this.
Very good. And it's okay to, you know, pass the word to fellow business owners. We've sent information out through Nathan's newsletter, and if you want to be updated probably several times a month on what's going on in workforce with labor market information, you can email nathan@landofsky.org and just say, please add me to your distribution list. And you can find out about different job fairs and different events happening around the workforce arena. So it's a very informative newsletter, and he typically sends it out a couple times a month, so you can scan through it and see what's new and what you want to read. And so Melissa and I have a few follow-up questions to pursue with the state, and we'll get back with the group. Please send us your email address and copy Melissa at landofsky.org, and we will continue the conversation. Thank you, everyone. I think we'll conclude this meeting, and everyone have a great day. Thank you.